Hey everybody, look, Alice is here. Hey Alice, we got Bob, Phil, and Neif tonight.
Yeah.
Where's Alice?
Yeah, there she is. She's looking at us with her creepy big eyes. You're kind of weird, Alice. Like, I'm just being
We,
honest.
but we still like you.
Yeah, just stay over there. You know. So, I've been I've been into Hendrix lately, and that's Neef's fault. Um, he we So I want to talk first. Let's talk about the album cover for Axis. What is it? Axis of Love. It's Axis.
Bold as love.
Bold as Love. Bold as Love. That's it. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about, Bob.
Second Jimi Hendrix Experience studio release
Hmm.
is what that is. It's the second. They only Jimi Hendrix Experience only actually released 3 records.
Hmm. Interesting.
Jimmy, yeah, I mean, very very short career.
Hmm. That's it's one of those things. It's like everyone knows who Jimi Hendrix is, but it's only recently here that I've started really listening to him and like the things he's saying, which uh, Neef and I have also just been going down a rabbit hole about Hinduism and different deities, and uh, he he has a concept in Bold as Love of all these different emotions and colors, and people are made up of these arrays of different colors, and that's what drives them. But there's a fear around love, around boldly loving, you know? And that's that message of that song, which it's it's easier to be bold and angry. It's easier to get mad and be and voice that. It's harder to openly love boldly, you know? And I think that's something, some people are better at it than others. And I think it's probably a development thing, like different.
I think that's what he means when he's saying bold as love, because it takes a very boldness
Mm.
to express love. It's like you're saying, it's really easy to just say F off and that's stupid or whatever, even if you don't mean it. But it's very hard to convince somebody, boldly about love.
And I've been thinking about that, Neef, like, why is love difficult? And I think for at least the answer for me, if I'm just being, honest with myself, introspection, the reason is because of fear. Like, we're afraid to be too open because in the past we've all been hurt, you know? Someone down the line has betrayed your trust. I think that's sort of a human story. We can all probably relate to that, where it's like you've opened yourself up and then um, exposed yourself and were hurt. And that's why I think a lot of people have a problem with it. It's eh, we really should, in the face of fear and pain, just live anyway, right? Instead of hiding. It's like if the world's gonna chew you up and spit you out, just let it do that. You can't cower away from it, or at least we ought not to. I think, and that's a part of art also. Is like that's facing the music, that's facing the pain of your like dealing with yourself, like identifying it instead of running away from it. It's like I'd say real art is, not not like superficial radio hits.
Well, I mean, art as what we consider to be art, you know, the definition of art, somebody would argue with you quickly and say, well, If it's put out with expression, it's art. But yeah, integrity, I think, is the, something maintains integrity.
Yeah.
It's, you know, not superficial, not
Right.
commercialized, not sold out for the buck.
Yeah. And like speaking as a poet, you can probably to some you probably know what I'm talking about, Bob. But like it's easier for me to write something angry than it is for me to write something vulnerable. And I push myself to write more vulnerable things. But if you're going to expose an aspect of yourself, it's easier if that aspect is not fragile. You know that takes boldness. You know, to be fragile.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also like just historically, like the word courting. We're talking about like I'm courting Jane, you know, we're dating. That's the original term that we used when we talked about like I'm dating this woman or this man and I'm romantically involved with them. I'm courting this person. And we get that word from the court, the royal court, because in the late Middle Ages and the early Renaissance, somebody had the idea that it would be a game that we would play, and all of the young courtiers would be matched up, sometimes randomly, sometimes choosing it. They'd be matched up, and it was a game that they would play in the court for the king's pleasure or the queen's pleasure, to
Interesting.
see how these sudden newfound random relationships evolved throughout the evening.
Mm.
And the king or the queen would get to preside over this game and watch the results and chuckle, you know, as it went down. Prior to that, the whole concept of romantic love wasn't something that we even had words for in the language.
Oh wow.
We didn't talk about it. It wasn't a thing. You didn't get married because you were romantically involved with the person. You got married because it was good for business. It's a
Wow.
business partnership, always, every single time, from the peasant all the way up to the royalty. Marriage was a business proposition. It wasn't romantic love. And wasn't until we getting into like the romance era and whatnot, when courting, it was invented as a game to see who at the end of the night might end up so attracted to their randomly chose partner that they can't part ways.
Hmm.
Wouldn't that be fun to see? It was a sadistic game. And out of that, there were people who followed through with it and ended up dating outside of the court, much to the chagrin of their parents or whatnot. Like the Duke did not want his daughter, like it was fun for a night. But
no, mother, I will
you're-
not marry the Duke. I'm
you're
going to
not
marry
going to be
this
marrying that man. Oh, but father, I fell in love with him. And so this whole concept came up. And so we ended up with the whole courting.
No
Which
daughter of mine is
now-
going to marry a stable boy.
Yeah, which now we just call it dating.
You must not
Yeah.
go beneath your station.
That's interesting, Bob. I didn't know that. I thought, I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought love was intrinsic. I guess not.
I think it is,
what
but I
is
think
romantic?
my point is that with the whole game aspect of courting and the romantic love involved in that, that our inability to express love readily is a cultural byproduct of the fact that it began as a fucking game to entertain the royalty.
Mm.
So we come back around to what you were saying and what you started with. It's like it's bold to express love. But when we are raised in this atmosphere where expressing that kind of love is just it's a game for the night to entertain the king, it becomes taboo to express that love or those kinds of feelings readily, because we're not in the court right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So I can't just sit here and tell you, I have all these romantic feelings for you, because we're not in the court anymore. The game is over. The game ended at midnight last night. And now it's the next day.
That is fucking cruel. You're right.
It's a cultural issue that goes back hundreds of years, dude.
Damn.
Like, there's origins for this whole concept that expressing love is a bold thing to do.
Right.
Because expressing it outside of the context of the game of courting was taboo.
Fuck. I'm glad I brought it up now.
Wow, yeah.
It's a neat subject, man.
Yeah.
It's a really neat subject, and then of course we get like, poets like Byron and whatnot that came out of this, and writing love poems, and of course Shakespeare coming out of it, writing his sonnets and this sort of thing. And he's writing sonnets to like perhaps women that never actually even existed.
Yeah.
Or perhaps to one that he met in a court.
Or an amalgamation of all these people he knew, culminating into one character.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Exactly. I was just going to bring up Beatrice in Dante's Inferno, and in the Divine Comedy, where he goes through hell and he gets lost in the woods, and Virgil guides him through hell. He makes his way through Purgatory in Book 2, makes his way all the way to Paradiso in Book 3, and who does he arrive at the end of it? Not God, Beatrice, the woman that he fell in love with during a courting ceremony to play a fucking game for the king.
Fuck.
And he wrote this whole trilogy about his love for this woman, and there's no sign. They never met outside the court. They never met again. They never got married or anything like that. But he was in this situation where he fell in love with this woman this one night.
So Dante's The Divine Comedy, that trilogy, is a love story based on a one-night stand.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Essentially, whether or not they actually did have sex, but yeah, it was a one-off. It was a one-off, and he couldn't let it go. He couldn't let it go.
Those times hanging out all night was, might as well, was kind of like putting on that level. Did y'all hook up? Well, yeah, you hung out together all night, because like you're saying, sex was for copulation, like marriage was for business. You had a dowry and you got traded cattle and shit. And, it's all cultures. It's not just one religious culture either. All these different tribes all over the place would have. I was watching something about, it was a girl in an African village, and it was a documentary just on these people. And one of the things going on was they were marrying one of their girls to another tribe. And they were talking to her, and she was actually upset because she had a boyfriend from her tribe, and nobody cared. It didn't matter.
Didn't matter. It wasn't good for business.
They weren't even worried about that she had the boyfriend. They were fine with that when she had the boyfriend, but it was like, okay, it's done now because you're going to this other tribe. You got to marry this dude. And on that, they were bringing a bunch of oxen. I think it was oxen or cattle, whatever,
I was just going to say, the guy you're marrying has 10 goats, but the guy that you love, it only has 2 goats.
He's in our tribe, and he ain't really doing much. There's no need. We need him to go hunt. We need you to go marry this dude in the tribe because that will connect the tribes. This has nothing to do with your feelings. And I'm trading a bunch of goats or a bunch of, oxen or whatever with you it's costing me a lot to give the, which is a lot of where the idea of the patriarchy comes in. They say, women were looked at like they weren't worth anything, but actually the big problem is that they were only looked at like they had this worth, you know.
They were just
So,
for business transactions.
right. It was like, well, I have a
Yeah.
daughter, she can't carry
So-
my name, and or even on the tribal level, she's not going to go out and hunt, you know.
So
So,
this
she
is
can
sort
have.
of this is sort of related. I just watched a documentary on Cleopatra and Mark Antony.
Hmm.
I didn't know any of that story, but it's funny because what we're talking about reminds me of that, because they were together out of love, and I guess there were political things to. Who was she with before Mark Antony? It was I can't remember now. She was with Mark Antony because she had feelings for him, though, and he had left his entire family behind to go be with her, and then he had gone off to basically fight a war for her, and she didn't
Well,
see him for 3 years.
But he was also a conqueror as it was.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of,
And
it's
not
like,
yeah,
did he
not
do it
for
for
her.
her, or was he
Yeah.
just going to be doing that anyway? And part of his conquering in Egypt was to build that alliance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that goes so far back. It's hard to even say that they had love between each other as we understand. You know what I'm saying?
I
They
guess
might have.
what
They
I
might have
watched
both,
was kind of romanticized. It was
yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's. I mean, but it's not to say that that couldn't have been the case.
Yeah.
But it's when you have such that high profile of a situation. I mean, for God's sake, we're still talking about that relationship this day in history.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
was more than just the two of them as a relationship. It wasn't like, oh, this is a great story. This was a massive change in history because of two people hooking up, as to
Yeah.
say,
Pretty much.
and that's really the argument behind when you look at that form of marriage. It's like, oh, that's horrible. Why would you be trading each other off? Well, the argument behind that is out on the tundra, you got to do what you got to do. And,
Mhm.
A lot of situations you got to think of a bigger tribe could overtake your tribe. You would rather marry off one of your daughters to them and be at peace and part of them than wait till their warriors come in and fucking kill you all and rape your women.
I got
But
you.
it's also a really perfect example of this. Goes right back into it. Is Helen of Troy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean the mythology from thousands of years ago directly points at boldly expressing love, boldly chasing after love starts wars,
Yep.
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 and people get decimated as a result.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if that's not anti-expression of love propaganda, then what is?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes way back.
I think so according to the documentary I was watching, Mark Antony had received a letter written by Cleopatra, basically saying that she had no choice, like she was in dire circumstances and she was going to take her own life, which Mark Antony fell on his sword after hearing that and died a couple days later. So his body was taken to be buried with her, but something had happened and she hadn't actually died. She'd written that letter, but she hadn't taken her life. And so it's what I'm getting at is it's Romeo and Juliet.
No, it's Romeo and Juliet. I mean, Romeo and Juliet is Shakespeare's commentary on courtly love,
Right.
and the problems that come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they fell in love at a party to entertain the royalty.
And it was very entertaining because it was rival households to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
One
And
big cosmic joke.
and he was kind of showing he was showing the absurdity of it because he was saying, well, everybody's marrying each other to connect houses. Let me
Yeah.
show the bad side of like how that can really not be a good thing if you let me reciprocate that and say, well, instead of two houses that want to join and two kids that don't want to marry, let me just flip the script on it and say two houses that don't want shit to do with each other, but their kids want to join.
Yeah.
And it would be a positive thing for the households, but we're going to show how that kind of influence is going to fuck it up because they don't keep their passions in check.
Yeah, and it's a comment. It's a comment on the irony of it all. It's this. Well, the absurdity and the stupidity of it all, of not being able to express love.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's. I mean, so Shakespeare was definitely commenting on what was initially called courtly love.
Hmm.
Courtly love.
Yeah.
Not,
It
not to be
still
confused
has
with
a ring to it, doesn't it?
it's very courtly. My love for her was merely courtly.
It's funny to think of romantic dating as a trend that caught on, because that seems so foreign.
Well,
It seems so foreign to today.
it's
Well, I
like
mean, at some point, somebody eventually got the idea that, hey, this
Yeah.
courtly love game
We
can
could
be fun every Friday. We don't really need to do it in the actual court.
now we have,
Holy
apps for
shit.
that.
Yeah, so we can. Wow, I mean, I would love to meet the person or the couple. I'm sure it was a couple. It had to have been a couple where the young man and the young woman were like it was like an epiphany, like fucking
Yeah.
like you were talking about psychedelics at the beginning, like it was like some kind of like psychedelic epiphany where they're sitting there in
Oh,
the garden and they're like, holy shit, we don't actually have to wait until the next court arrangement to hang out.
yeah.
Fuck, we could
For the-
see each other every day.
And then the speakeasy was born.
Whoa,
I
what are we
wonder.
gonna call it?
So like,
The club.
so um, what was I just about to say? Um, damn it.
Really quick while you're thinking,
Yeah.
maybe this will serve as a segue. So, in speaking of this, like, I mean, everything started somewhere. So, the whole idea of like dating outside of the court without the king's approval at a game, woo, a specific gathering,
Scandalous.
we can do that. That's scandalous, but we just have the idea, And so everything starts somewhere. So I have this theory that the wheel was invented by some hunter gatherer who stepped on a fallen log in the forest and it rolled out from under him. And he fell on his ass. He got the wind knocked out of him. And he realized, holy shit, a rolling piece of wood moves weight that easily. Bam. Now we've got the wheel. That's my guess. It was a hunting accident. I honestly think the wheel was invented as a result of a hunting accident. Some dude busted his ass when he stepped on a log chasing after a deer.
Nice. I still don't remember what I was gonna talk about, but you were talking about that couple that saw that in each other, like and had that epiphany.
Yeah.
It got me thinking about The Shining, That's what I call that, when people say love at first sight, or we just clicked, or even like not even just a romantic thing, but when you walk into a place for the first time, a bar, and you just get this atmosphere, like it's familiar, even though you've never been there. I'm romanticizing, places, people, objects, But anytime you do this, that's the shining, an unspoken telepathic
You get that a lot in music.
the spark. Yes.
Oh,
And yes, that's
it's
right.
totally telepathic, and that shit happens. I don't know if you hang out in bars a lot, but man, I did it for way too long, and it happens all the time.
Mhm.
Like I swear to God, you can be totally zoned out, staring at a football game with a cigarette hanging out of your mouth, and you're half drunk, and you just know there's somebody behind you 20 feet away that's staring right at the back of your head, and you turn around and you immediately make eye contact because they're still looking at you. Like you feel that shit all the time, and it happens a lot in bars because in bars everybody's half drunk, so they just kind of like let go of their inhibitions and all that kind of stuff, and so they tend to more readily trust their intuition. That's yeah, the intuition comes out as a result of being that kind of,
Mm.
you know, booze laden, intoxicated and whatnot, you know. And yeah, you turn around and boom, you immediately make eye contact. It's like the first thing you see, first thing you look at is right in that other person's eyes because you could feel it in the hairs on the back of your neck. Somebody's looking at you. And it happens so often, and even as a bartender I would witness other people doing it. I'm not just talking about just it happening to myself. Like as a
Mhm.
bartender, a former bartender, like I mean I would see that shit happen to people all the time.
It's yeah. With people, places, objects, a book, a song. Yeah. It's okay. So now throw psychedelics into the mix, throw mushrooms into the mix, and you have some real telepathy going on. It's uh I mean, I'm talking from experience here. I don't know how much experience you have with that kind of thing, but um I've carried on conversations without words, and it's an eye contact thing. I think it's a moment of recognition when you both see something and you both realize that you're saying the same thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like in an instant you realize you both see something and you're both aware that you both saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the best way I could explain that. But
It's
yeah.
like I mean I don't I've never dabbled. I've never been one to dabble in hallucinogens too much. Uh I've always tended to be much more interested in like in lucid dreams, in like how to because your brain naturally produces DMT,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the theory that when you see the white light at the end of the tunnel um on your deathbed, that it's a DMT hallucinations, that your brain is overproducing the DMT momentarily in order to comfort you on your way out.
Yeah.
And so I'm of the mind, I follow in the school of thought that lucid dreaming is basically it's you're using meditation to boost your DMT production naturally. Um, and then it gets even more exponential once you start getting into astral projection, and it's basically you're having natural overly produced DMT production in your brain that's to hallucinate and feel like you're outside of your body and all this kind of stuff. But my buddy and I we did salvia a couple of times in college
Oh
when I was
boy.
in graduate school, and we got like this like 10 times potency salvia,
Yep.
and I only
Yep.
did it twice. And the first time it was funny. I was sitting on a sofa outside of my buddy's house, and I smoked it, and then there was all this construction equipment across the street, like caterpillars and all that kind of stuff, bulldozers and whatnot, you know. um and like caterpillars as in like the company that makes the bulldozers and shit, the big yellow vehicles and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I saw the earth crack open and this green face came out. Like I had just gotten a Green Man tattoo on my arm, and then like just a couple weeks earlier, and so I'm sitting on a sofa and I see this green woman just like my tattoo, except she had tits. She comes out of this crevice in the earth and she looks at me and she's like, don't worry about all those bulldozers. It all came from me. They're just as natural as the stuff you're smoking.
Whoa.
And that was it. And then she went back into the ground, and I was like, bulldozers are natural, they're organic. That's so cool.
Yeah.
But the more important experience was the next time when I was sitting there with my buddy, and he takes a big hit, and I immediately take a big hit, and he's sitting on my futon, Indian style, like lotus position and shit. And I'm sitting on the armrest of the futon, and I look over at him, and I just start bust out laughing. It was like I suddenly understand the cosmic joke of how the human body is capable of contorting into the lotus position, and why it's necessary for deep meditation in Buddhism and all that kind of stuff. And it was just so absurd, and I'll never forget it. And he looked at me and he immediately understood. He was like, you understand why I'm sitting like this? Like, yes, I do. And then that was it. That was the end of it.
That sounds like that
salvia only lasts like 30 seconds, dude.
Yeah.
It's the stupidest shit ever. But I mean, it was fun.
I have never in my life gotten anything that profound from salvia. Like
really?
goddamn. My salvia experience is just fucking weird.
It was silly. It's silly shit, dude. It's silly shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what I would really like to do, and that's the extent of all my hallucinogen use. What I would really like to do is I'd really like to go into the Amazon for 3 days and do ayahuasca, and maybe I can quit being an addict. Apparently, it helps with that.
Yes.
That's what I've heard.
I think we're gonna have to end up like doing a rabbit hole field trip into the fucking Amazon.
Oh, fuck.
We should with
the whole goddamn crew.
With you guys, I would actually be honestly very interested, and more importantly, very comfortable trying mushrooms for the first time and acid for the first time. If we
don't say that to me, Bob.
Make a plan to do that. I think I would actually feel comfortable with you guys on that.
That's not the suggested request at the tea table, but you know.
Sorry, did I say that publicly?
Oh no, it's
I mean, come on, man. It's the 21st century.
Oh yeah.
So okay, all right, we're talking about psychedelics now. Why are psychedelics illegal? Does anyone have a good answer? Anyone got a good answer?
I didn't catch that. Why are psychedelics what?
Illegal.
Not all of them are.
Okay, well, let me the ones that are.
They're very effective.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's a laughing matter, but Keith is right on point on that.
He's right.
It's the exact reason why they are illegal is because we're too afraid to let mature adults explore their own minds freely and independently.
Because that's scary.
It's scary
to the man.
Yep. There's no money to be made if I can grow my own medicine per se.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no money to be made if not only can I grow my own medicine, I only need to take it once a year. You know, you're talking about putting a whole lot of an industry, or you're pretty much killing an entire industry in the medical field when you start messing with that. That's why they don't want it. Head drugs don't fix you. They fix
So, okay, this is the only reason I can think of. Legitimately, like I think about this a lot. That's the only reason I can think of that they're illegal. And I mean, okay. So like you guys know why cannabis is illegal? Is political. Is political. It was what was it? Was it Nixon or Reagan? Who did the war on
No,
drugs?
well, Reagan did the war on drugs, but cannabis being illegal goes further back. You're talking about
Oh,
originally the tax stamp. There's a tax act when it used to be legal back in like the 40s, and you had DuPont out Rayon City, right here. You had DuPont coming out with a synthetic fiber called, I guess that would have been what rayon was, but it was a polythene. It was a plastic basically, and it rivaled the strength of almost every other natural fiber. The only thing that really didn't rival was hemp. Nothing in nature when you make rope and shit. Pretty much, I don't think there's anything in nature that's stronger than hemp. I mean,
Hmm.
it's what they made everything out of back in the day. That's what got the ships over here with their ropes and their sails and our paper. All of it was all hemp. Very very strong, very versatile. Well, when you have a company that's huge that really wants to push a product that can get outdone by something you can grow, and that is also an agricultural thing. It's a huge agricultural plant.
so it's lobbyists.
Well, he got with a DuPont got with a religious activist. I don't remember all their names. I mean, you can look this up, and it's a whole. That's what Reefer Madness was all about. They put that video out. They put that video out to try to scare people. You
Yeah.
know that those jazz cigarettes. Those jazz musicians are going to come rape your daughters and get them high on the marijuana. You know,
Your
and
white daughter is enjoying black music.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
Fuck.
That's what it
It's
really
the
is, right?
reefer.
Yeah, I hope she's
I
not
mean,
smoking those reefers.
there was literally a scene in Reefer Madness about that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's and all it was him trying to. He got this religious guy who didn't like
Hold
it.
on, let me stop you. Can someone fill me in on what reefer madness is?
It was a propaganda video done in was it the 50s?
I want to say
Oh,
50s
wow.
or yeah,
The
it was early
the
50s.
It was done in the 50s, and it was like here are all these
You can
innocent,
find it.
nice 1950s white picket fence youngins, and they're off at a jazz club, and now they're
And this
smoking
dude
the
shows up and is
reefer.
like, "Y'all should try this."
And
I
then
mean, they go nuts. But
How
it's
long
long,
is it?
silly.
long story
Like
short,
30 minutes or something, I think.
yeah. Long story short, they end up in a car. I think it's a convertible, if I'm not mistaken. They end up in a convertible, running people down in the street,
Yeah,
running them over
yeah,
for basically like Grand Theft Auto points
yeah. It's
I mean, to be
because they
fair,
smoked a
it's
joint.
funny to watch it, but
Well, now, yeah,
now you watch it, but then you realize this was actually put out
to be fair,
to be
I
true.
I commit vehicular homicide every time I smoke weed. So, I mean, I
this
might
goes
just
with the territory.
that might be specific to me, but I'm just
That's
saying.
why. I mean,
At least it
driving
helps with
so
your
much.
appetite.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure YouTube has it because it's an old film. I mean, it's a hilarious film to watch. Everybody knows about that. I'm kind of surprised you don't know about Reefer Madness.
I'm
Yeah, so
definitely gonna check it out now.
yeah, they basically did
You
that.
gotta watch it.
Should we just
Yeah,
watch it on the
so they-
show? Is
so
it public
they've,
domain?
Yeah, I think it is, but it kind of it's kind of, I don't know if I'd really care to sit through it. I don't
Okay.
find it that funny.
Yeah.
It's
I'll
funny
check it
to
out
just,
later.
yeah, it's funny to watch, but it's really dumb.
I got you.
But I mean, what you ended up having was hemp gets outlawed. What they do is they make a tax stamp, and it's a catch-22. It's you have to have a tax stamp to possess cannabis or hemp. They were calling it marijuana. Marijuana was actually the name of a different plant, I believe, in Mexico that you could smoke and it had a harder effect on you. And they used that as a term for it. That's why a lot of people start calling it marijuana.
Mm.
It's supposed to be called, a lot of people refer to it strictly as cannabis now because they want to kill the dog, the stigma. But if you possessed it, you had to have a tax stamp. But in order to get a tax stamp, you had to possess it. You had to bring it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's how they screwed people. They were like, we can't make this illegal. We can't make this, because they can't make a substance illegal. The government can't. So what happened in the 70s, I believe, is the Controlled Substance Act. And that's when the federal government said, now what we've done is we are going to control certain substances.
So that's Reagan administration.
No, that's Nixon, I think, did that. But
Yeah.
I think it might have, yeah.
Why do I always get these two confused? Which one started the war on drugs? Like that was his thing.
Nixon.
Well, Reagan, what's called the war, Nancy Reagan started the Just Say No program, which is what's related to the war on drugs.
Okay.
And that's what they called it.
That's what I'm really asking you. Okay.
Nixon started a lot of what we know as the war on drugs.
This must be why I get him confused, because the answer is both.
Right. It wasn't called that. I don't think they called it that in the 70s. I think that was what they called it when Reagan, because every federant puts out his own fucking new version of the same bullshit policies. And Nancy Reagan headed up the Just Say No campaign. That's when DARE came out. And it was like, just say no. And NWA came out. We don't just say no. We too busy saying, yeah. About drinking straight out the 8 bottle. Do I look like a motherfucking role model? That's Ice Cube right there, baby.
Fuck yeah.
Sure.
To some kid looking up to me, life ain't nothing but bitches and money.
I mean, they're on video admitting it like 20 years after the fact that at least I can't remember the guy's name, but it was somebody in Nixon's administration where he flat out admitted it during an interview like 20 years later. He was like, oh, everybody knew the whole reason for it was to put African Americans in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Why crack got introduced.
Political adversaries also
used it to target them, and they combined it with, oh, you're a convict, so now you can't vote.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they combined the two. The whole point of the war on drugs, and they knew this.
And then crack gets introduced.
Fringe elements, hippies, and African Americans to prevent them from voting for the rest of their lives.
Keep the poor down. Give them, and then you had then you got cocaine, which was the rich man's aspirin. All right. And in the early 80s, heroin started getting pushed out and started, getting pushed out of the ghettos because it wasn't as much of an epidemic. You don't see heroin in the black population the way you did then. Back in the 60s, I mean, the jazz music, it was heavy duty, in the early 70s. But then heroin kind of started phasing out a little bit. Well, crack gets introduced into the ghetto. And I've always said this, ain't no street dealer that was slinging cocaine figured out how to make crack.
I love your choice of words. It got introduced. Crack got introduced into the ghetto.
Into the ghetto because
it was purposely put there.
Yeah.
Hi ghetto, I'm crack.
It was they knew it was strong. It could addict. It was a heavily mentally addictive like cocaine. And it was a productive, like you could still work for a little while. If you were smacked out on junk, you weren't going to go function at a job. Now, a crackhead don't really function that well either, but they're going to get up, and it's going to work out for a while, but it's going to keep them down. It's going to keep you from ever saving money. It's going to keep you from ever thinking you can get out of the ghetto. It's going to keep you from working any real, getting any education, getting any nutrition. And that's what it is. That's the reason why alcohol was not outlawed. It was the prohibition. They realized, no, this shit ain't going to work because people are going to drink anyway, no matter what we prohibit. No matter we put a prohibition on, people are going to do it. And they realized alcohol, man, that keeps people down more than anything because it's so easy. Easy,
that's true.
It's so cheap, it's so easy. And it's it becomes one of the okay drugs. That's one of the worst things about the whole pandemic is that a lot of people started thinking, they were joking about their alcoholism 2 months in. Oh, it's fine. I'm just, drinking margaritas for breakfast again. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, I mean, it's funny, but it's not half a year in when people are depressed and actually drinking margaritas for fucking breakfast, you know?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's,
I mean, that's me. I mean, I wasn't joking about it because there's really nothing funny about it. But
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, good. I went from 5 days a week getting off of work to go hang out with the 6 p.m. crowd at the bar for an hour and a half tops. I'd be home no later than 7:30 p.m. I mean, it's been a couple of years now since I've actually been out like past 9 or 10 p.m. Um, and oh yeah, being stuck. I'm a very social person. Very social person. So it's like being stuck on my patio. It's like, what the fuck else am I going to do? And play music? I'm going to get a 6-pack for breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm one of those people. I'm not ashamed to admit it. That's exactly what the pandemic, what the quarantine did to me.
That's bold.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, and it's one of the times that it's what's upset me about it so much is that it's really put everybody into that position. It's made it to where normally you could say, well, look, that's your own decision. And it always is your own decision, but it makes it so much harder right now because people are, stay in, don't go do anything, only get the necessities. You can't work, you can't, this and that. So, everybody's bumping their head against the door. We're animals. Animals get up and do shit. We have to feel, we're sitting fight or flight's freaking us out now. I think it goes
after a couple of months of sitting on your patio by yourself day after day, 7 days a week, and like none of your friends want to come over and hang out because of social distancing and all that kind of stuff. It's like, dude, your self-worth goes right out the fucking window first and foremost.
Yeah.
Like you totally feel worthless.
Yeah. We trying to find ways to keep everyone together and do things, It's like, I mean, this is one way to do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, meeting you guys and especially meeting Evan and actually being like, whoa, somebody actually wants to help me out with my music, And then I met Stan on his synth modules and shit, and it's like, I mean, if it weren't for you guys and Evan and Stan, I never would have made it through the whole fucking year. I don't think I would have.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really glad I met you too, man. Like, I consider you a really good friend now. We haven't known each other long, but like the minute I met you, it's just like it like we were talking about The Shining. It's like this guy's someone I can talk to and someone I want to spend time with,
Yeah, even if it's only like once a month. I mean, for a while there with Evan and Stan, it was like this was my social life. Every Sunday for 3 hours, we'd play music. But I had that Sunday to look forward to for the whole rest of the week.
Yep.
Hey, has anyone else noticed that Phillip hasn't blinked in like 20 minutes?
I know. He's got a still image up.
How are you doing that, Phil? How are you not blinking?
He put a still image up. That's hilarious.
It's like the copycat, or not the copycat, but like when you have like it's like the big unveiling for the museum, and then the centerpiece is just like a calling card where the spy.
Yeah. It's like a picture of the thing.
Yeah.
He's got a whole alchemy lab in the background. That looks like it almost looks like it wants to be like if Tesla lived in 1650.
That's
right.
That's a really apt comparison. Yeah.
I think if he had done this though, nobody would have noticed that he wasn't blinking. It would have taken us twice as long to figure out it was.
We might have thought he fell asleep.
My Zoom is not responding.
Oh, so it's a lockup screen. That's what it
Yeah.
is. That's what
all it is.
I was thinking. Did he take a screenshot and then go in and then
Oh, I
switches back
wish.
around and then just dive out real quick?
I thought it was some super slick shit for him
Yeah. That's awesome.
there.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is one of the things that I'm trying to do is because I mean that's just in my nature, and what I've always done is provide the help as far as on the music side. You know, with helping all these projects out is because everybody is going stir crazy.
Phil, I'm gonna kick you and put you back in real quick.
Okay.
I'm not kicking you all the way out. I'm just kicking you to the waiting room and putting you back.
All right.
I'm sorry, Neif. Go ahead.
That's and because of because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing friends of mine, new people I'm meeting, people that I mean, there's a lot of musicians like Evan who I know we have met on the stage years ago, and I probably 20 different people I could rattle off that I've gotten in touch during this time that are musicians that we really don't even know if we have ever met before, but we know each other at least on the scene. We're like, I know of you, I know who and we understand the interest is trying to get art out, get some music out, get it done, get it recorded, get it played, something, because it's just not happening. And it's not even about playing live shows. A lot of people on the outside of it are like, oh, I miss live shows, I miss playing live shows. They don't really understand that that's a fraction of it. Musicians aren't about I just want to go play a live show. Musicians have to create. We're artists. We have to create music. We have to put it together and write it and play it and perform it together, and that's how we communicate with one another.
Yeah, for me, it's not about stage shows at all. Like,
right.
It'd be really cool to get a live recording, of doing like a one-off house show where we actually try to replicate the whole thing live to the best of our ability. And that'd be really cool to do that and invite some friends over. But other than that, like, I don't want to pack my shit up and go tour. I don't want to go to a different fucking club every Saturday night and have to do that, whether I'm in the mood for it or not.
Right.
Like,
That's
first and foremost, especially when it comes to the guitar, like, I'm a composer. I want to get this out of my system, and then I can be like, okay, I got that out of my system. Now I can work on the next idea that I've got, and I can focus on that, and I don't have to worry about, well, if in a couple of years I forget my guitar line for track 10, it doesn't fucking matter anymore because I've got the studio recording. It's there. I got it out of my system. I'm done with it. I composed it. I recorded it. Boom. Let's move on. What matters now is this new song that I haven't recorded yet. And so I've got to remember that. And just, it's like crawling up a ladder, one step at a time, one song at a time. And just because once you get to the top of that ladder, if you have no plans of ever climbing back down, it doesn't fucking matter what happened on rung number one.
Right.
He blinked. I saw it. Oh,
like he's in.
Yeah, that's a good point, Bob.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's the most crucial thing that I personally can give back because I know where that's at and I know the feeling of that. And I'm not necessarily in the same dire straits as a lot of other people, financially, like many people. Obviously, we're all stressing. I'm stressing a whole lot more. Damn it, I wish I had a Venmo to plug right now. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I figure if, as an artist of any type, you have to be doing something, or that's what an artist is. That's the difference in somebody that just builds something or does something and somebody that really feels like they have to,
It sounds like you guys are talking about the difference between like an artist and a performer, or like or specifically composer and performer, right?
Well,
Oh, there's a huge difference.
but
Like, I
there's
mean,
also art in performance.
Like
You
performance
know,
art. Yeah.
of
Okay,
Yeah.
so
course.
you're right, Neif.
Oh,
I'm talking
yeah.
about composers versus performers.
well,
Yeah, both are
and
artists. Both are
Yeah,
artists,
you're right.
totally. But
You're
it's
right.
like, I'm not a performer at heart.
Right.
Like, I mean, I like, you know what? I love it. My ego loves it. Getting a couple likes whenever I post something new in a video on Facebook and whatnot, and I get some attention for it. Or, like, I mean, I just hit 2,000 views on that one
I saw
practice
that, man.
video. You know, it's like, I'm like, that makes me really, really fucking happy. And I suppose that part of it, like, makes me a performer in some sense. But the ultimate goal for me is not really, it's not the it's not the 2,000 views of people watching me holding a guitar. It's the 2,000 views of people that are hearing the notes. And I think there's the big difference there. I mean, if I knew how to do video editing, I probably wouldn't even half the time show myself on the video. And sometimes I do, because it's important to, like,
To show what you're doing.
show where my fingers are on the neck, so that if I do forget it, I can go back to the video on my page and be like, oh yeah, that's where I had my fingers for that chord. Great.
you put up a lot of like riff videos for like other members in the band, and I like you even tagged me in there for showing parts for almost like you're using it like a public like where a lot of times when I'm working with artists, they'll send me riffs and tracks on an MP3 on an email, you know. But rather than doing that, you're like, well, this is pretty cool. I'm going to put it up on a video and then just tag a couple people. And it always cracks me up because it is easier on that level. And then it's, even though it is just a small piece, it's out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you end up getting all these other random views from it. And, you know, people are like, oh, that's a really cool part. That's, you know, a cool thing. And then I'm sitting here going, okay, what was that part right there? You know, and, you know, listening to what you're doing further than that, because I'm, you know, trying to work up how we're going to put it down, you know?
Yeah. And it's funny too, because it's like, I still have no idea where that 2,000 views came from. Like, that video is no different than any of the other videos on my page. And I think the next one up is like, I did a pedal tutorial of my rig for our guitar pedals on Reddit, and I got like 460 views on that. But that's because that one I actually linked it to Reddit myself.
Right.
And so I got a lot of people watching it. But otherwise, like, all of those other videos, I only put them on my Facebook wall, and I don't have a lot of friends. And so I have no idea where that 2,000 views came from. I don't know.
could be funny.
Somebody shared it. Somebody
Yeah.
shared it elsewhere.
Yeah, that's most likely.
Happened. But that's a good thing. You know, I mean, it's, you know, so people are interested in it.
You could have some, you know,
Gives me
some,
hope.
some doser out there putting it on repeat, you know. It's just like, wow, man, this is the headiest thing I've ever heard, you know. It's like they're sitting listening to it on repeat. You're like, Jesus,
it does get pretty crazy.
Am I getting?
Yeah.
Not to give away, not to get into it and give away too much, but I just wanted to say, Bob, I'm really excited about the project you're working on.
Yeah, we're getting there. Evan and Stan are finally we're supposed to get together tomorrow. Apparently Evan got the day off. So we're finally gonna finish up Probe using the Attack Decay pedal, and yeah, we'll try to get into the studio and knock that out, and then Stan and I at the same time could probably knock out the post-credit scene in like 2 takes.
Fuck yeah.
So then we'd be 3 tracks down out of 11.
Bob,
at least what's that, about a third of the way there. So
I don't know if I ever asked you, have you ever used a Ouija board?
No, we've talked about this before, though, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure I have asked you that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just couldn't remember what your answer was.
I never got into the whole seance summoning side of the occult.
I will say, when we go to do that other thing we discussed, that would be the opportune time to use a board as well.
Yeah, for sure.
drugs and spirits go hand in hand. It's more specifically
Obviously, yeah.
you'll get this. Well, yeah, I mean, of course you understand this, but it's not specifically drugs. It's altered states, right?
Yes, of
Altered
course.
states of consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about that in the last podcast,
Yeah.
where I was talking about how through practice you inevitably enchant a physical object with a state of mind, and then the object
Yes.
itself begins to induce the state of mind itself.
Right.
Like it becomes um animated, very
Yeah.
much in the same word where the anima is the Latin word for the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is I would very much like to do that with you because I know you understand these concepts. If that's something you're comfortable with.
No, I'm totally comfortable with it. My only thing is, like, I guess all the way through college and in even graduate school and even after, I was always, for the most part, surrounded by people who only ever viewed it as recreation. Like, oh man, I'm taking a bunch of shrooms. This is so fun. I'm so fucked up. Like, look at all these colors. And I'm not, and I never have been that kind of person.
When we do it, it'll be a very
Psychedelics and
solemn
and
experience.
stuff.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
won't.
I
Yeah.
want to be in a room with people who will actively, like, think about, okay, what's happening to me, can maintain some semblance of self-awareness, and would be interested in talking about it, even if it's only at a later date. Because we might be a little bit too fucked up at the time to actually process some, like, really interesting thoughts. But
Yeah.
I want it to be an instigator of, like, meaningful discussion and exploration,
One of
and
the
Want it to be profound.
not just a reason to get fucked up on another
Right.
Saturday because I'm stuck on my fucking patio.
Yes.
That's
I'm
one
Bob.
of
I'm
the,
right there with you, man. That's
Because
exactly
if I just want to get fucked up on my patio, I've got booze for it and it's cheap.
this. I like. Okay, so on the same page, I like to explore. This is a new frontier. It's not a game. It's
Mhm.
it's something to explore and understand. So when we're doing so, okay, with that in mind, before we do this, I'd like you to think about just, I don't need an answer right now, but one thing I would like you to think about before we do this, in between now and then, think of questions. Like what do you want to know when you sit down? Because this is something I'm struggling with. I've done many seances. Probably close to 100, but it is very hard to have good questions. You'll find yourself at the door not knowing what to ask. So,
Oh, I've already put a lot of thought into this. I don't know why I haven't tried it all yet, especially with the hallucinogens like microdosing acid and shit. Is my main thing, my main concern is, why after 30 years has my poetry hit a plateau?
good question.
I'm not developing anymore. I'm not.
That's
It's been
excellent.
a long time since I've had that quantum leap. It's like when you learn a new language, and I know a few, like when you learn a new language, you hit these quantum leaps where it's like, oh shit, suddenly that phrase makes sense and I don't need to translate it in my head. It just comes out. And then eventually, after a few other quantum leaps, eventually you get to a point learning another language where you start to dream in it.
Mm.
one of the
Start having dreams in Thai, like
one of the
for
things that you're gonna have
Thailand, I'm
to
like dreaming in Thai, and it's like that's a quantum leap. I'm learning the language. The
Damn.
fact that I'm dreaming in it means I'm getting it,
Right.
and I'm not at that point anymore where I have to sit there and think of it in English, translate it in my head, and then speak it in Thai. I just fucking respond in
Right.
Thai.
this
And
is one of the things you got to really take into consideration when you get into taking anything that's psychoactive, especially alkaloids, because alkaloid will make language worthless to you.
Mm.
It will make it absolutely worthless. One of the most frustrating things to me is one of the reasons why when I take anything like that, I'm by myself. And a lot of people are afraid of that. They're like,
Well,
"Oh my
well, Neif,
God."
you say worthless. I would just slightly split hairs and say it makes it obsolete because you're speaking on
Well,
a different level.
right. One of the most frustrating things is when people try to communicate with words while I am at that
Hmm.
level.
Instead of just nodding at you and getting it.
Right, because
Okay.
really it is such a personal thing,
Right.
you know. A lot of people, I think one of the reasons, and I get what you're saying with, yeah, and I've always felt that way about, it's not something you should go party with. Now, I'm not going to say in my youth I didn't go party with shit because,
Sure.
but I immediately understood, and the things I had read and studied about things let me know, okay, this is something to be respected. This ain't
Yeah,
taking
I
a
mean,
drink.
like a tool can also
Right,
be like the way you're using it, a tool could
right,
be to have a good time, to let
right. And that's the thing is, going out in the woods, it would be fun, and me and my friends dropping and going and doing things, it would be fun, but we couldn't plan anything. We learned really quickly you couldn't plan anything because you get, that's when things get unfun because you are you're going very egg-headed. You're really turning your child back on.
I'll be
You're
right
turning
back.
things on and you're turning your child back on. So you will start quickly questioning why the fuck are a lot of people, it's you don't want to be inside a lot of times. You'll start looking at things and wondering, why is it that you know, a lot of things will make pure sense to you, but it makes all the superficial social bullshit make absolutely no sense to you. And it's almost intolerable. You know, that's a lot of times why people will freak out on hallucinogenics because their intolerance for the realization of the bullshit that they've been putting themselves through really just goes against the grain with them and they can't handle it. And alkaloids go into the cortex of your brain, the very center, and they fire some shit off. And the very center of your brain is where your instincts and all of your animal nature is. Psilocybin I call the animal fever because when it comes on, it feels like a fever because it's the poison. And you start to feel more like a beast than anything. You start really feeling like you don't want to speak about anything. There's nothing to speak. There's not, none of this makes any, it's all inefficient, you know. Um, I mean, I find myself not wanting to, not really wanting to have clothes on necessarily to that extent, but even sometimes it depends, but almost never wanting to have shoes on, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you start feeling things like,
Yeah.
you start thinking about like, if you ever put something on your dog, like a shirt or hung something over it, and they're just like, what, it's weird to them.
Right.
And you're like, why does that feel weird to them? It's just sitting there, I put clothes on, it's because
You've seen Donnie Darko, right?
Yeah.
it
Why are
belongs.
you wearing that rabbit suit? Why are you wearing that human suit?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. It's so one of the things that I often tell people, especially when they haven't stepped into that realm or stepped into that realm often, is what you're talking about with people that party and people that really, that's what the term psychonaut really means. Anybody can drop L. Anybody can, I know a bunch of people, dude, I'll drop a 10 strip. And it's like, well, okay, but are you going to learn
Did you
anything?
drop a 10 strip and then sit in your room in the dark and do this for hours?
Right.
And otherwise, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, that's the thing is, and if you did that, I don't want you to tell me that because that's not the point.
Oh, yeah. Now it's your ego getting involved.
Yeah, now it's like, well, I just sat there and I mean, I could tell you some wild.
It was so profound. It was
Yeah.
such a profound experience.
I mean, I can tell you about contorting myself naked in the middle of the floor for over an hour because I just
Tell
felt
us,
like I
Neif.
needed to do it. But you know,
Don't tell us, show us.
so but I can't really explain to you what I figured out that day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing is people can tell you this big, like, well, blah, blah, you know, but what you figure out, that's in you. It's not
Yeah.
really there for you to tell anybody. You know, even the shaman would piss in the bowl and what everybody else would drink as urine so they could share the trip. That he didn't really, you know, he was still speaking in tongues anyway. Everybody had to act like they knew what he was talking about. The chief made the decisions. You know, they're
Yeah.
just like,
I've thought about trying it, especially microdosing it and my poetry. And part of the reason is I've always been fascinated by the idea that uh was it Francis Crick or was it Watson who and he's admitted this in an interview multiple times publicly, like not ashamed about it at all, like where the night before they made the model for the double helix, he dropped acid and he saw it on the wall in his living room.
mhm.
And he went in, I think it was Crick, and because Crick was known for doing acid, and he dropped a bunch of acid and stared at his wall and he saw the double helix on the wall in his fucking living room. And then he went into the lab the next day and was like, Watson, I think I got it. And he built the double helix model. And Watson looked at it and immediately was like, that's it.
Recognition.
Where did you
That's what I
find
was
it?
just about to say. It's
It
pattern
was like, and
recognition.
Watson immediately recognized it. He immediately recognized it. And he was like, where did you find it? And Crick was like, I dropped acid last night and I saw it on the wall.
Right.
And now we have genetic engineering and DNA's
And
modeling and all this kind of stuff.
keep
Like
in
it's
mind that
wild. It's totally wild. So, you know, I think about that little historical anecdote with these guys won the Nobel Prize for dropping acid.
Yeah.
And I think about that and I'm like, why have I hit this plateau with my
that's
poetry?
exactly
And
why
I'm not
it's
evolving and my style's not evolving anymore. And I haven't really gotten, and I can see it. And that's the thing is that like, I can
We're gonna
see
crack that skull, Bob.
I can see it in the
Crack it open.
distance.
I'm just
It's like-
trying
it's
to
like-
open the hole in your face.
It's like I know I can see it with my third eye. I know where it is I want to go, and I dream about it. With the poetry, I know what it is I need to do and where I need to go, but I can't quite get there. And I think that like I don't know. I'm fascinated by Francis Crick and the double helix, and
You
I
guys,
think that like I
Just-
might learn something from it.
you
Just
guys know
remember
who? Oh, go ahead, Phil.
that it is a tool.
Right.
Yeah.
It is still you still have to be the one to wield the tool. You cannot
Right.
let the tool control you.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes, sort of an issue with some people is they let those sorts of things, that's when they let them dominate their lives and, addictions are formed and people can't, then they suffer. But it doesn't always start out with that intention of, ending up in that place. They may be thinking just like you, hey, this could be something to help me, but I would say that it's definitely a direction to go. I haven't explored it personally in context of my art, but it has helped me in some areas a lot in finding out who I am. And that's also very important for an artist because an artist can't make real art not knowing who they are.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that part of the problem is the plateau with my poetry that I'm talking about is that I've reached an impasse in my own self-awareness.
Mm. We're gonna figure out who Bob is. We're gonna get to the bottom of it.
But I got a neat little analogy. Is like you guys mention it, like talk about it, calling it a tool, and this just popped in my head. It's like a claw hammer. You can use it to build a house, but you can also turn it around to the claw and dig yourself a grave.
Yep. You could tear the
Yeah.
house right back down too.
I was telling I was telling
Disassemble it.
I was telling my mom about a DMT experience, and my mom's very religious, and she just has she has my best interest in her heart, and she's like, I understand what you're saying. I was telling her about the experience, and I was describing it as a tool, a way to better yourself. And she said, I understand what you're saying, but the analogy she gave was a child getting into their parents, a child getting into his dad's tool shed. It's like the tool shed's locked for a reason. There's things in there that you're not supposed to touch, and they can be dangerous. Like, the blowtorch is up on a shelf out of your reach for a reason. You're not supposed to go do that. That doesn't mean you can do great things with a blowtorch, but you can also hurt yourself or hurt others. So, and I when she said that, I was like, you're right, Mom. That's exactly right. Like, people do need to be careful with these things.
Don't mess with blowtorches, Alice.
It's funny that you brought or when you said that about using the blowtorch to not only hurt yourself but to hurt others. I feel like some of that comes into the way that we talk about these things like psychedelics and things like that. There is a danger, and when we mess with these things, we know what we're doing with them.
Now, I didn't always, like,
Right.
especially concerning like boards, like the Ouija board. I've had some dangerous close calls, and I will be the first to tell anyone watching this that you need to be really careful when you're fucking around with spirits. You need to know what you're doing. You need to do a little bit of research before you jump into that, because I learned the hard way.
Because, well, I mean, that's the thing, is you can only do so much research and learning without practice lab and
you got to go get hands-on
experience.
but
it's more about, you can always say, make sure you know what you're doing, but that's kind of, it's kind of arbitrary. I think it's more to say you need to be prepared to take the responsibility of your actions. And that's what a lot of people don't do. It's like, I've done a whole lot of things I didn't know jack squat about, but I didn't grab a buddy and say, hey, I do know about this, let's go do it, or you do it. I went and did it. And I tell people what I've, and I try to do that with all experiences of life, no matter what it is, to preface everything with, as far as I know,
or in my experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that above a banner. I'm gonna make a backdrop banner that says that.
That
could be wrong, but from what I know,
right.
What you're touching on, like, I'm definitely guilty of that. Like, I've when I first started using the board, my first instinct was to tell everyone about it and try and show them, which I still do that sometimes, but it's like, I self-admittedly don't know what I'm fucking with here. So, I mean, you're taking a risk. I'm letting you know, but you are taking a risk when you sit down with me. Like, it's not, I've done this a lot, and I feel pretty certain that we're going to be fine, because I kind of do know what I'm doing. I've been through this before, but it is one of those things where it's like, if we go all get in a car together, there is a chance we could get hurt.
Of course.
Yeah.
But it's like what was it? I can't remember if it was Phil Hine or Peter Carroll in the Psychonaut movement who said that laughter is the best banishing ritual.
That was Peter Carroll, I believe.
Was it Peter Carroll? Yeah, it was Peter. It was Peter Carroll. And and there's a lot of veracity to that. And also it was Phil Hine who had said, we're too important to take ourselves seriously.
Yeah.
And this goes along with the whole lines of the chaos magic thing, where it's like just laugh at it before walking out the door. You don't need to put on a robe and pick up an athame and a ritual dagger and fucking trace the pentagram and shit. Like, just fucking laugh at it. Because, like, I mean, there's this old school occult term that we use. It's a chapel perilous. And if you guys aren't familiar with chapel perilous is basically, it's a headspace that you get into when you study the occult and you take yourself too seriously. And people who are like extremely neck deep in chapel perilous are the ones who like develop some kind of like temporary schizophrenia, where they think that they're being haunted, or they think they're possessed, or they think that somebody is casting spells against them, and they're surrounded by suspects, and they're this perpetual victim, and they've taken themselves way too seriously. And that's where what I had mentioned to Philip earlier, that's where the self-awareness comes in. And it's really, really important to to recognize
Chapel
if and
Perilous.
when. Chapel perilous is what it's called. It's an old school term. I think it came out of the Blavatsky, Rigardi, Mathers movement in the occult revival of the late 1800s and the early early 20th century. Yeah. I don't think Aleister Crowley mentioned it specifically in those terms, but it was very much a common term at the time, and some of us who studied the older stuff still use it. And so yeah, chapel perilous is where like it's chapel because you've become religious about it.
Okay. I was just about to say, it sounds like Luciferian.
Perilous because this is a dangerous place to be in. It's a really dangerous place to be in.
It's a chapel that doesn't lift you up. It's perilous.
It causes psychosis, and this is not the abyss. I mean, the abyss is something completely different, and the abyss is a really good thing if you know how to deal with it. If you can find your way into the abyss and come back out and not find yourself sitting at a pew in chapel perilous, you're good. You're golden. That's fine. But yeah, chapel perilous, man, and I see it all the time in some of the the occult group that I was in for a while with Marlo, Keith, that Marlo and I had helped to start. And like, people would come and go where they were just like freaking out, asking for advice. Like, I'm being haunted. Like, I read 777 by Aleister Crowley, and now I think my neighbor is casting spells against me, and shit like this. And these people, like, you're laughing because you are already of the mind that laughter is the best banishing ritual.
We're not in
right?
Perilous.
I mean, you're already there, so it's not a worry. And if you weren't already there, I wouldn't be comfortable talking about making plans to do acid with you. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, chapel perilous is a very, very real thing. It's a really real thing, and it really fucks people's heads up.
That's like to take that ideology outside of the occult or the studying of that. You can apply that into the political spectrum. You can apply that into the dope spectrum.
Yeah, for sure.
It's people that have, gotten so far into some philosophy that all of a sudden they think that this philosophy has explained all the issues that the other philosophies are failing at, and so that's why people don't really, I think that's what this world is suffering from right now. Is exactly that, chapel perilous. Everybody's at the fucking pew going, you're not going to change my head about this at all, because I've figured it out. This is the fucking church I need to kneel at.
Oh yeah, as if one doctrine can suddenly do what the other one didn't.
Right.
That's right, man. That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
That's why it's one of the reasons why I take a materialistic approach. I take a materialistic approach to everything occult. Like, even if we don't have an explanation for it yet, there's a reason for it. And at some point, we will be able to explain lucid dreaming and astral projection and all that other kind of stuff. At some point, we will, scientifically, whether it's with an EEG or whatnot, or brain imaging and this kind of stuff. Like the imagination is a powerful thing. And I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room right now and everybody listening has had a dream before that seemed so real that when you started falling, you literally felt it in your gut as if you were going down a roller coaster hill.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, your imagination can literally control what you physically feel in your body.
I never thought about
Or if you've ever, or if you've ever been on VR,
you wake up when you hit.
If you've ever been in virtual reality.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever done virtual reality where you see yourself jumping off a ledge?
Oh, dude, that happens to me in video games.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yes, it happens in video games. Where
First-person shooters increase your pulse because of that. First-person shooter, you're amped because
Yeah, even in third person in a video game, you're like, let's say you're playing World of Warcraft and you jump off a cliff.
Right.
You start falling towards the beach and you fucking feel it in your gut.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
You feel it in your dick.
Yeah. Your imagination can control your physical, your physiology. Like, and it's fascinating. And one of the first explorative virtual reality demos I think that John Carmack had put out was where you walk all the way up to the steeple on a church and you come out on a platform and then you jump off. And it was specifically designed to test whether or not the virtual reality would cause that physiological reaction in your body.
That's I never thought about that, but you're right.
This shit's real.
It makes you feel, literally, it makes you physically
feel. It
feel.
does.
What you see
causes your imagination has physiological control.
And what you see is your reality, and your mind only knows that. And so when you trick it, you can know that, but the synapses is still fire.
Yes.
And your body still is going to do what it does. Just like, I mean, even down to the adrenaline rush, you play a game online and, like a Survivor where you're playing other people online that almost everybody you see is going to kill you and take everything you got. It's just a game, but you still get this amped feeling when some other player comes over the hill and you're like, oh shit, I got to fight this dude.
Man, if you've ever played Dark Souls, you get that adrenaline rush feeling with every boss that you encounter. I mean, Dark Souls is designed for that. Like, it's like designed to create physiological change in you, to get
designed to create physiological suffering.
It's fascinating, man. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Dark Souls is so hard. It is now used as the term for harder than the extreme.
Cuphead is like the Dark Souls of platformers.
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding. It'll say,
No, I know. It's
difficulty
every game
level. Difficulty level: easy, medium, hard, extreme, Dark Souls. And that's the peak.
Yeah. Dark Souls is a hard game, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, what is it?
It ain't no ghosts and goblins, you know what I'm saying?
Dark Souls is the wait, no. Bloodborne is the Dark Souls of Dark Souls.
Nice.
Just get stupid at that point. It's really
like, how meta can we make this?
yeah, right. Oh, but it's really fascinating. And on that point, like, let's take it a step further. So so I've been practicing fucking around lucid dreaming and astral projection for about 20 years now. And ever since I started getting into Carl Jung.
Yeah.
When I was introduced to Carl Jung by a professor when I was 19, and I really kind of, there's a lot about Carl Jung that I disagree with. His mandala work, I think, is convoluted bullshit. I'm not so sure how I feel about the collective unconscious. We can go into all sorts of stuff.
I don't
but
think Jung is sure how he feels about that either. It's such a weird.
Well, it's the kind of thing where it's like his mandala analyses of his supposed patient who painted these mandalas. I'm pretty sure that Jung painted the mandalas himself.
Oh.
And created a fake patient in order to make an argument that he wanted to make when he didn't actually have any real life data. Yeah, yes. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole unto itself. But I started getting into his publications on what he called active imagination, which is basically it's Western active meditation, and what we would normally call in the occult community visualization. So you close your eyes, you visualize a triangle in front of you, and then the next step is you visualize it spinning. And then the next step is like maybe you visualize like a dog or something. And then the next step is you start to visualize a dog running. And you can progressively make your way through these tiers, essentially, leveling up, if we're talking about video games, leveling up through these different tiers of visualization difficulty. And then eventually you can get to a point where I've got exercises that I teach people in the philosophy group that I used to be in with Marlo, where you visualize yourself looking at the sofa in front of you, and then you visualize yourself moving out of your right or left side of your body around the room until you are sitting on the sofa across from you looking at yourself. And
oh shit.
Oh man, it gets into some really, really wild and difficult stuff. Like I've got an entire curriculum that I've got written out. I've just been too lazy to write the damn book. But it's something like, I think I've got something like 24 exercises that eventually take you to the point where you are visualizing yourself stepping across from yourself, looking back at yourself. And can you visualize the room and everything that's behind you, your actual physical body, and maintain that thing.
I wonder if you have that much discipline because you haven't done psychedelics. Because it's like I've leaned on it.
I've been asked that before on multiple occasions. Yes, and that's one of the reasons. It's another one of the reasons why I've kind of been put off.
Coming as far as you have,
yeah.
Now doing it that's gonna just take you and turn it to 11. So you're gonna. We should try to astral project.
Oh, but this one goes to 11.
Yeah.
We got the Spinal Tap reference. So okay, so we're going with that. Now I have this idea that people ask me, it's like, what's the difference between lucid dreaming and astral projection? And from a materialistic perspective, because I've astral projected probably close to 100 times, and been to some weird places. You feel it. You literally feel like you are lifting off from your body, escaping your body. Like, I mean, the feeling is all there. But I take a materialistic approach where I don't think that you actually leave your body. I think it's all just your imagination controlling the feelings in your physiology through your nervous system. Now I have this
some serious mental hacking you're doing.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Mental hacking. So, but I had this saying so what's the difference between a lucid dream and astral projection? Lucid dreaming is where you have control over the content of your dreams in hindsight. Astral projection is when you have control over your dreams in real time.
Okay.
So it's like when you have a lucid dream, it's all about like, oh, I can control the content of my dream. I'm making decisions. but you're not actually making those decisions until after you wake up and you realize that you made them. In hindsight, looking back on the dream.
Yeah.
With astral projection, you are literally awake enough still to the point where you are actively making those decisions in real time
Oh wow.
in the dream.
So the only time I've ever lucid dreamed, I was reading. Oh, we lost Bob.
Bob's gone.
Well, you know what? We've been going for a minute. Yeah.
He may pop back. Sometimes the connection will kick out for a second, and then he'll jump back in. We'll see. Maybe he'll shoot a message if his phone might have died or something. Who knows? Or he's on his laptop.
Well, this would be a good time to end it anyway.
Well, Alice.
Yeah.
Sorry that Bob just fell off of the table real quick.
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
He just fell down a different rabbit hole.
Yeah. It happens sometimes.
Yeah.
We leave them under the chairs.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Alice, thanks for being here. But Babo will return at some point.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we are on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify now. So any way that you want to intake that content. Yes,
we've put it under more chairs now.
Yeah. Our goal is all chairs at some point.
Should have a rabbit hole beneath them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, that's oh wait, hey Bob. Okay. We're sorry, false alarm, Alice. Bob is back.
Oh, see, he climbed back up out of that hole.
Hey, are we still here, guys?
Yes.
Hey, sorry about that. I was wandering around on my patio for too long and my laptop battery died.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I got the charger. We're backed up and going. So yeah, okay. So I was talking about how like it's really kind of weird and hard to explain. But like when you have a lucid dream, you're dreaming this content, and then you're like, you know what? I'm gonna jump and I'm not gonna come back down. Or I'm going to fly, or I'm going to walk through that wall, or I'm going to jump into that shark's mouth and I'm going to come out of its ass, or whatever it is that you're doing. And you're having this dream and you are controlling it to an extent, but it isn't until after you wake up that you realize you were controlling it.
I kind of get what you're saying, because
saying like so when you have a lucid dream, like a regular dream, you're not controlling shit, you're just observing. But when you have a lucid dream, you controlled it in hindsight in the sense of like you don't really realize that you were controlling it until you wake up. Astral projection is when you are completely controlling it, and you're like, let's put it this way, let's say like a dream, you're 100% asleep. In a lucid dream, you're like 50% awake and 50% asleep. When you astral project, you're 80% awake and 20% asleep. Just to pull bullshit numbers out of my ass to give an example.
I got you.
So it's all about how much of your consciousness you shut down.
Yes, entirely.
Okay.
It's all about how conscious are you?
That's one of the reasons when you're trying to do any of those, especially like lucid dream, you have to worry about sleep paralysis, because when your body falls asleep and your mind hasn't, your body, you'll feel the paralysis because your body fell asleep and you're not used to that. That's why it tightens up, and it is hell, man. Some people go through mental shit and they'll see faces and get really freaked out.
I've experienced sleep paralysis.
Yeah,
I've only experienced it physically, where it just hurts so bad that it was like my muscles are tense up. I didn't have any visions or any freak out like that, but I was just, I had this Charlie horse all over my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was only because I had read that warning when I was looking into how to do it that I knew what was going on, you know. And it happened to me, I think twice it's happened to me where I went to sleep paralysis. And I mean, it was, you know, it took me another hour and a half to actually go to sleep. You know, I had to, you know, wake my body back up and feel all right, and then just go ahead and go to sleep, you know.
Yep. Sleep paralysis, basically, that's the 80-20 that I'm talking about. And I actually every time that I try to teach people about visualizing in order to like to get to a point with a lucid dream on a regular basis and this sort of thing, I always call sleep paralysis is the diving board to astral projection. You're there. You're in the conscious, semi-conscious state of mind to the degree that you need to be in order to exit your body. All you need to do from there on out is get used to the fear. Overcome the fear, and then you can jump out.
So is that, would you say that is that what makes it? So is it the fear that makes it the sleep paralysis? Like, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yep.
if you went into the mind, you know, and you were prepared for it, that would not be an issue for you.
I think that it's because see, I was pretty mentally prepared for it, but I think it goes back to your body's natural reaction. You know, just like we're talking about when you're, you know, and when you're visualize, you know, you put on a VR, if you know you're not jumping off a cliff, but your body is still going to do that. So I knew that I wasn't afraid of losing or jumping out of my body. It's just that I wasn't used to only only letting my body go to sleep. And so when that happened, no matter what I felt about it, my body was just going to react. And that's why and I think with some people talked about freaking out. They would see faces and get these crazy visions and it scared the shit out of them. I think that's that level. If you go in with a mind frame of I'm not afraid of that, the physical pain is what you got to worry about. Because I mean, I was as clear as a bell, you know. I was kind of pissed. I was like, God damn it, this sucks. Because now I can't even just go to sleep. Because I mean, I turned over in the bed, you know, and I was just sitting there just like, God, you know, I'd felt that before, but not all over my body. You know, it was literally like a fucking Charlie horse, but it was my chest, my arms, everything. I just clenched up, you know. But
because you were trying to escape it.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
and then
but that's what I mean when I say about fear is that it's a physical instinct where you're still awake but your body is asleep, and so you're terrified by that because you can't control your body. And like, I mean, well, of course you would be if somebody gave you a paralytic and allowed you to remain conscious the entire time. Of course you'd be freaking the fuck out. Like, why can't I move? You know, it's an instinctual, physiological fear.
Right. I mean, I could move though.
I think that it manifests itself as the watcher at the gate. What you're talking at the faces that you're talking about is what we call it the watcher at the gate.
And I just read about those or saw people, you know, when I was studying it. And so that was one thing I worried about. And I was like, well, no, I didn't see any, you know, I didn't have any mental freak out. And I could move. I wasn't paralyzed as, you know, the normal, but my body was physically so tensed up that, you know, you know, it wasn't a good time for me to go fight nobody. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't about to get up and run around the room, but you know, I turned over in the bed. It was just, there was no getting over this. And the way it came over me, you know, it wasn't like, oh, I worked out a bunch or, oh, I did this and now I'm feeling that come in a few hours later. This was just like, bam. And I was like, that's how I knew I had hit something. And I was like, okay, my body fell asleep. Damn it. You know, this hurts. God, this sucks. You know.
So the Watcher at the Gate takes on many different forms. You know, there's a documentary about the Watcher at the Gate on Netflix.
What's it called?
It's a documentary about sleep paralysis and the like fiends that people see, like where they'll have like a presence hovering over them while they're paralyzed and whatnot. Mine, I think I went through it about a dozen times or so, a little bit more than that. And it was invisible, and it was a presence that basically sat on my chest, preventing me from exiting my body until I finally got over it, and I had created this dream ritual, which I call the diaphragm bomb. And it's basically whenever I get sleep paralysis and I feel this thing that's trying to tell me not to come out, it's like I imagine all this energy welling up in my diaphragm, and then I boom just exploded out like in a like a radius, like a shockwave.
Like a xenomorph coming out of your chest.
More like a shockwave.
Right. Well, that makes sense that you say
It goes away every single time. It goes away. But
well, that
now
makes sense because
I've gotten to the point where my watcher at the gate just doesn't even come around anymore. So I don't
well,
know.
that makes sense because the tightness I felt more than anything was in my chest. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And you know, because like I'm saying, it was not mental at all. I didn't have any kind of mental like fear, but it was literally like my chest muscles were tensed up. You know, not my heart or anything like that, but just literally like my, you know, and it was so freaking weird. You know, I remember turning over and just, you know, so that makes a lot of sense that it, you know, if you're trying to project out of your chest, if that's what you're trying to come out of, and the watcher of the gate, as to say, is something that's either trying to come and freak you out, or like you're saying, literally sit there and hold it shut.
So its purpose is to keep you from leaving your body.
It's an imaginative manifestation of your fear of exiting your body.
Okay.
That's my take on it.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So in that instance, it works to keep you from escaping in whatever way that it knows it can.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's like you've gotten to a point where you realize that you can astral project and have this out of body experience, and your physiological fear kicks in, and your imagination manifests this entity that basically sits there and prevents you from taking the next step.
I gotta show you guys something.
Diving board.
That's crazy because
the documentary is called The Nightmare.
All right, check this out, guys.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's super creepy too. Like the special effects they use to like recreate people's anecdotes and whatnot. It's really good. It's like it's a documentary, but it almost feels like you're watching a horror movie at the same time. I highly recommend it. It's really cool.
I'll definitely check that out.
My it's crazy because I have only gone through sleep paralysis one time, and I remember I had a dream, and when I dream a lot of times I'm watching myself in third person. I hardly ever dream in first person. So I'm watching myself. What is this?
You tell me.
Yeah, there we go.
Like...
I like it.
Nice.
You reminded me. Oh shit, that's not. There we go.
I love the horse.
Yeah.
The horsey.
So this is a depiction of sleep paralysis. So when you said that, Bob, I was like, holy shit, a watcher demon that sits on your chest. I've seen that before. And I was like, I went and looked this up, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so he would be the what we call the watcher at the gate. I actually wrote, if you guys don't mind, let me see if I can pull it up. Hold on. Something funny happened with my view here.
Oh, shit. Can you guys hear me?
Control it.
Okay.
There we go. Search on Facebook, Watcher at the Gate.
Hmm. Yeah, sleep paralysis demons. That's I
Here we
think.
go. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wrote this a while back, based on my personal experiences of the Watcher at the Gate. I do not fear the Watcher at the Gate. Too many tendencies, too many thoughts, too many doubts, too many lights or moths, too many deep apologies, too late. I do not fear the Watcher at the Gate. I will not let you lead me toward the hate. I will not live the consequence or cost. I will not pay my debts. What's lost is lost. I will not fear the Watcher at the Gate. I've tossed too many whims into the wind. There's nothing to regret or to rescind. I'd rather rest here half awake and wait. I will not fear the Watcher at the Gate.
Mm. Yeah,
Dig it.
be bold. Bold as love.
Bold as love, baby.
Well, gentlemen, this is it's been fun. We
Always fun.
we talked about sleep paralysis. We talked about spirits. We talked about psychedelics. We talked about love. We talked about courting. Yeah, we went down all the holes tonight.
Because they were
Every
all
hole
under the
has been-
chairs.
We've been in so many rabbits' holes. It's like bestiality. Neef's like, dude.
Neef's face. That's funnier than the joke.
That was worth it just for that reaction. Oh shit.
Well, it's been a pleasure courting the three of you.